Assemblywoman Backus. Assemblyman Carter.
Present.
Assemblywoman Duran. Assemblywoman Hardy. Assemblywoman Howdigy. Assemblywoman Kasama. Assemblywoman Monroe Moreno. Assemblyman O'Neill.
Here.
Assemblywoman Torres. Assemblyman Yeager. Assemblyman Urick. Chair Marzola.
Here. Mr. Wines, please indicate all committee members present. Mr. Wines, please indicate all committee members present. Welcome everyone that's here in Carson City, those joining us by video conference in Las Vegas, and anyone tuning in over the internet. Today we have 3 presentations on the agenda. We will hear from the Department of Employment Training Rehabilitation, the Sunset Subcommittee of the Legislative Commission, and the Legislative Auditor. Before we get started, I would like to make a few housekeeping announcements. Members of the public may provide testimony in various ways, all of which are listed on the agenda. The chair or a member of the committee may request testifiers to submit documentation supporting their testimony. When testifying, please turn the microphones on to speak and off to listen. We have listeners and viewers in Las Vegas and online. We are also recording this meeting, so it will be available later in the legislature's website. If you have handouts for the committee, please provide 20 copies to the committee secretary prior to your testimony. In addition, exhibits and amendments must be submitted electronically as a PDF file to our committee manager no later than noon on the business day before the meeting. Committee information is also available on Nellis, which can be accessed through the legislature's website. We ask that public comments be kept to 2 minutes so that everyone interested in speaking can be accommodated, and this also ensures we can get through the agenda in a timely fashion. Speakers are urged to avoid repeating comments made by previous speakers. Public comment may be submitted in writing, either in addition to testifying or in lieu thereof. Written public comment may be submitted before, during, or up to 24 hours after the meeting adjournment. I expect courtesy and respect in all our interactions. Also, I would like to remind members of the committee they must be recognized by the chair before they speak. This includes all questions, comments, and requests for follow-up questions. In some cases, members may want to follow up with presenters or sponsors of the bill after this meeting. Finally, please turn off your electronic devices, especially your cell phone, or put them on silent mode during the meeting. With that, we will move to our first agenda item. Actually, we're going to recess for 1 minute. First, we have a presentation from the Department of Employment, Training, and Rehabilitation. Joining us today is the Director, Christopher Swall. Please begin when you're ready.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, committee members. For the record, my name is Chris Sewell. I'm the Director of the Department of Employment, Training, and Rehabilitation, also known as DETR. Thank you for having us here. We always love to talk about what we do and how we do it and all the people we do help. We do have a slide presentation for you. I think some of you may have seen some of these slides at a previous hearing, maybe last week. Hopefully we will, I think we have some new slides in here, so we're going to try to mix it up a little bit. I do ask that if I do tell a joke that I told last week, at least laugh like you heard it the first time. We will, again, slide numbers are on the top right of the slides, and for reference if we do have during the Q&A session. You're going to be hearing from the team. And we have a great team at Team DETR. You're not going to listen to me talk for, I think I have 20 minutes. You're going to hear from them. This is a long slide presentation, and I guarantee you we are not going to go over every single slide either. We put these slides in for your reference. We're going to be doing a high-level overview of Dieter, so that way you, and then you can ask questions. If you do see something in one of the slides, we can dig a little deeper, but I will not be going over all of the slides. So, to start, vision, empowering Nevadans to realize their potential through meaningful work, building economic prosperity in every community, and I do mean every community. And that's from the north, south, east, and west. And we've been up to West Wendover last year, and we actually helped their school system out with our vocational rehabilitation division. So we are in every community, and we are going to be touching every community. As you see the mission, to empower a vibrant and equitable workforce and economy through our Employment Security Division, Workforce Innovation, Rehabilitation, and Nevada Equal Rights. Dieter's organizational chart, of course, we have our administration behind the scenes doing a lot of the work, financial management, our IT division, also known as Information Development and Processes, IT. I don't like that other name. Research and Analysis, and Human Resources. And then we have three main divisions: our Employment Security Division, which houses everyone's knows about unemployment insurance, and our Workforce Development. But they also house our Commission on Post-Secondary Education and our Governor's Office on Workforce Innovation. Our Rehabilitation Division, Bureau of Vocational Rehabilitation, Bureau of Services to Persons who are blind and visually impaired, and Bureau of Disability Adjudication, and our Blind Business Enterprise Program. That basically is if you walk into a DMV and you go buy a cup of coffee, that's our Blind Enterprise Program. That's one of our blind entrepreneurs that we help to become a successful entrepreneur. And we also have them, and I believe in this Clark County administration complex in Las Vegas and some other areas around Nevada. And then we have our Nevada Equal Rights Commission and our administrator, Kara Jenkins, who's in Las Vegas as well. So I said you were going to hear from the team, and I promised that, and so I'm going to turn this over to our administrator of our Employment Security Division, Linda Parvin.
Thank you, Chris. Good afternoon. My name is Linda Parvin. I serve as the administrator for the Employment Security Division. The Employment Security Division has three major areas: workforce development, which connects Nevadans to training and jobs and helps businesses find skilled workers, which is led by Carlene Johnson. Our unemployment insurance section, which manages and administers the unemployment tax and benefits, led by Nancy St. Clair. And the Commission on Post-Secondary Education, which licenses and oversees private post-secondary educational institutions to protect Nevadans, which is led by Kelly Wiest. In workforce development, we have spent the past year working on rebranding the state's workforce efforts under the Employ NV umbrella to help job seekers and employers find the services they need more easily. The Employment Security Division collaborated with the regional workforce development boards, Nevada Works and Workforce Connections, to align as the Employ NV system. EmployNV.gov houses the largest database of job seekers in the state. This change works to eliminate public confusion and streamlines the workforce services that are available for all job seekers and businesses. Also recently, the division applied for and received 2 emergency grants during COVID for over $15 million to help dislocated workers return to work. In total, the division oversaw $230.3 million in workforce funding, representing 15 different workforce program revenue streams. In unemployment insurance, over the last 2.5 years, ESD has paid out over $12 billion in unemployment insurance benefits to over 600,000 Nevadans. Improvements are being made in customer service experience, business processes, and staff training through 2 grants. Nevada was one of the first states to receive assistance from the U.S. Department of Labor's specialized Tiger teams of national experts to improve system operations. And in September of 2022, the U.S. Department of Labor approved $4.5 million in an unemployment insurance equity grant for us to help ensure all eligible workers have fair access to unemployment insurance. In addition, staff have worked to implement fraud prevention measures, including ID.me, preventing over $2 billion in fraudulent claims. The biggest project that we have in unemployment insurance right now is the UI modernization project, which is running on schedule. At the December Board of Examiners meeting, we received the final approval for $72 million for the modernization contract with Fast Inc., our vendor for the system. We received legislative approval for ARPA funding for the project and brought in a national expert on unemployment insurance modernization projects to facilitate the process of identifying system requirements and creating the RFP. We issued the RFP and evaluated the resulting proposals, hired a project management consultant to support completion of the project, and spent much time negotiating the contract to present to BOE. The kickoff meetings were held in January of this year, and we've begun the work on the UI tax system, which is scheduled to be completed in February of 2024. Immediately following that, we will begin phase 2, which is the rollout of the UI benefits program, which is scheduled to be completed in June of 2025. At the Commission on Post-Secondary Education, change applications are up 40% since 2020. The lack of an online application means that 98% of applications are incomplete and result in staff follow-up manually. In addition, review requirements have expanded to include financial soundness, institutional effectiveness, quality of education, and many other components. Reviews now require the Commission staff to spend multiple days on site for classroom observations, interviews with students, staff, and faculty, facility inspections, student file reviews, and a remote review of 24 months of advertising. In order to assist with that, we are working on system modernization for the Commission. The request for proposal is scheduled to be released in March of this year, with a proposed vendor contract in July and development beginning in August. Also in the Employment Security Division budget is GOIN. GOIN has several grants in the workforce arena. The first is the Sandy Grant, which supports dislocated workers affected by the pandemic obtain the necessary skills and credentials needed for in-demand, high-growth industries in Nevada. In addition, there's the ANA Grant to connect underrepresented individuals who were affected by the pandemic to career pathways in high-demand sectors in Nevada. The H-1B Rural Healthcare Grant provides education and training programs in healthcare occupations in rural areas for unemployed and underemployed individuals. NEPRIS provides an educational platform that connects educators and learners with a network of industry professionals. And in addition, GOIN provides staff to the Governor's Workforce Development Board, which is the policy board over the WIOA, the Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act workforce programs. With that, I'll turn it over to Drazen Alez, the Administrator for the Bureau of Vocational Rehabilitation.
Thank you, Linda. Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the committee. My name is Drazen Alez. I serve as the Administrator of the Rehabilitation Division. Also with me in Carson City is also my amazing colleague, Michelle Merrill, Deputy Administrator of Programs. Rehab Division portion of the slides is long. It goes from slide 10 to 24, and it contains a lot of details and specific information for you to review about our program. But I will just provide you with a brief summary of who we are, what we do, and my colleague and I will be more than happy to answer any questions after the presentation. In short, Rehabilitation Division assists individuals with disabilities to obtain economic independence. That's accomplished either through assistance with employment, where 3 of our bureaus focus on, the ones in green, and one assistance with obtaining Social Security benefits, which is our Bureau of Disability Education. In federal fiscal year 22, BDA has assisted 20,841 Nevadans with processing their Social Security claims, while annual amount paid to Nevada disabled beneficiaries in the same year was $1.3 billion. Bureau of Vocational Rehabilitation and Bureau of Services to the blind and visually impaired Their main focus is to providing essential services necessary to assist individuals with disabilities to work in competitive integrated employment and achieve self-sufficiency. In state fiscal year 22, the agency served 5,225 individuals, and we have assisted 540 of those to achieve competitive integrated employment, which is a 31% increase over the previous year, with the average case length of 908 days due to the complexity and individualized nature of our work. We provide complete wraparound services from the initial assessment of individuals' abilities and interests through provision of any type of training and education needs, including college, assistive technology, and or any other accommodations, and then finally to job search and job placement. Simple way to view us is that we are one of the tools in state government's employment toolbox for assisting individuals with disabilities to get and keep competitive, independent jobs. Why does this work matter? Because the employment rates for people with disabilities are significantly lower than for their peers without disability, and the poverty rates for people with disabilities are at least 2.5 times higher. Thank you. And with that, I will turn over to my other amazing colleague, Kara Jenkins, Administrator of NERC.
Thank you, Drazen. Good afternoon, Madam Chair Marzola and members of the committee. My name is Kara Jenkins. I am the Administrator for the Equal Rights Commission, also known as NERC. And just some brief highlights, and I can also take questions after. The Equal Rights Commission, we were established in 1961 by Governor Grant Sawyer. The first appointee was Dr. Bob Bailey, with the specific goal of desegregating the state and casino hotels for the entertainment industry, for Black workers and folks who are of color. We've now grown to be an agency that has a full investigatory team and administrative professionals, including myself, to promote equality and equity in the state for everybody, regardless of race, color, national origin, religion, gender identity or expression of that gender identity, sexual orientation, and all of those protected classes under state and federal law. What we do is we provide training to Nevada businesses to prevent discrimination in the workplace or in public settings or in housing cases. Our main goal and our accomplishments are in investigating and resolving complaints of discrimination before they go to court, before folks invoke their right to sue. So we're really proud of that. And so the next slide highlights our accomplishments. The last 3 state fiscal years, we've seen settlements back to Nevadans in the amount of $7 million and above in compensatory damages alleged that did not have to go through litigation. The total claims that we've resolved, I want to say amicably, but at least peacefully, have been over 3,826 claims, all with a staff of about 14 folk, including myself. So we're really, really proud of that. Another mention is that we partner with the United States Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, also known as the EEOC. We do joint outreach with the EEOC and also glean on them for best practices on how to make sure that employers know what their responsibilities are, also what their rights are too, and for employees as well. So with that, I will now pass it over to Deputy Director Josh Marhevka. He is up north with you all. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Madam Chair and committee members. My name is Josh Marhevka. I'm the Deputy Director over Operations for DETR. The Administrative Services Division is comprised of financial management, IT, research and analysis, and human resources. These units within the division provide exceptional levels of financial, technical, economic, and human resource support to all programs housed within DETR. FM is led by CFO Christine Nelson and Deputy CFO Carrie Edlifson. IT is led by Administrator Carl Stanfield and his IT Chief Lakshmi Boka. And last but not least, our Chief Economist Dave Schmidt, who oversees research and analysis. I pass it off to Dave.
Thank you, and thank you, Madam Chair and members of the committee. My name is David Schmidt. I'm the Chief Economist for the Research and Analysis Bureau in DETR. In a quick overview of what we do, if you see employment data or unemployment data or data analysis, it probably comes from our shop, either directly or indirectly. We work in conjunction with the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics and the DOL's Employment and Training Administration to try to provide information about Nevada's labor market to the public. And on the next page, just a quick highlight of some of the recognition accomplishments that we've had. We get to participate on the National Workforce Information Advisory Council. We work on setting policy for the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics for the OEWS program, cooperatively with our federal partners. We've received Data Insights and Innovations Award for the last 2 times it was awarded in 2019 and 2020 in conjunction with some other states, and are nominated for another award that'll be, the winner will be announced next week. We also are working collaboratively with a lot of other states to try to make sure that we're being as efficient and effective as possible in trying to digest the large amount of information that's out there about the labor market and the state's workforce to the public, to policymakers, and to anyone who asks. In a really quick highlight of some of the numbers that we produce, you can see on the next slide that our employment is higher than it was before the pandemic. We're about 25,000 jobs higher. Our unemployment rate as of December was 5.2%, which is a little bit higher than it was prior to the pandemic when we were in the high 3% range. Part of that's because recently our labor force participation rate has been rising. The share of the people, of individuals in the population who are either working or looking for work is up a bit from where it was during the pandemic, though still a bit below where it was prior to the pandemic. We've also seen wages rising in the state over the last couple of years as we've come out of the pandemic because of inflation and other wage pressures, and we have data about that as well. And then finally, some of the other data and analysis that we produce to support other areas of DETR, as you've heard, is taking a look at some of the statistics around the state's unemployment trust fund. And in short, as we've come through the pandemic and out, the trust fund recently passed $1 billion in total balance. This is down from where it was before the pandemic when we had about $2 billion. It is higher than where we were before the Great Recession when we had about $850 million. And it's progressing toward being prepared for a future recession. And there's a number of statistics there. One of the important ones is through the pandemic, we had borrowed about $330 million. Those loans have all been repaid, and the trust fund is continuing to grow. And with that, I'll transition back to our director.
For the record, Chris Sewell, Director of DETR. I do want to recognize one more individual on this team, and that's my other Deputy Director, Troy Jordan, who's behind me. It is truly a team DETR. I may be the director. These guys do all the work. And they have a lot of stars behind them doing a lot of the work as well. So they're the ones that are the stars. I just sit here. They make me look good. And I wouldn't be, this state wouldn't be anywhere without them. I want to also thank Dave. I know everyone didn't get to see Dave last week. He was in training in Tennessee, I think. He gets to travel a lot, which is great because Dave likes to travel. With his charts and his numbers, he will go anywhere and talk to anyone. And I offer that to anyone in this building. If you have a question about anything when it comes to unemployment numbers, employment numbers, workforce numbers, please reach out to Dave directly. He is excellent at what he does, and I think a lot of our administrators would also say he is excellent at what he does. With that, I'm open for any questions you have for the team, and we really thoroughly enjoy telling you about DETR.
Thank you so much for your presentation, and I appreciate you thanking your team because I know I couldn't do what I do without my staff and definitely without my committee members. So we do have a few questions. The first one is Speaker Yeager.
Thank you so much, Madam Chair, and thank you, Director, and to your team for being here. And just want to take an opportunity to thank all of you for the work you've done over the past few years. Most of us on this committee were here in 2020 when the pandemic started, and I just remember how hectic those days were, and especially when the Strip closed down, and none of us were ready for that. And so I know we sent a lot of people your way I know you had to ramp up in a way that was unimaginable. I felt the level of frustration from my constituents, and I can only imagine what it was like for all of you on the front lines. But, you know, we came through that, and I just wanted to recognize that because sometimes I feel like the pandemic feels like it's in the rearview mirror, and maybe we do that psychologically, but those were really tough times, and you guys stepped up. And so just a couple of questions that I have. I do occasionally still get emails from constituents, way fewer than I used to get, but they tend to fall along a couple of lines. They tend to follow along, I'm still waiting to hear back for my initial unemployment claim, and then, or I've appealed, and I've been told it's going to be a long time before they get to my appeal. So I just wanted to ask, generally speaking, where we are with, I don't want to call it a backlog, but pending claims in terms of initial approval. And then on the appeal side, I tend to recall we needed to get more appeals officers in there. So if you could just at maybe a high level give me a sense of where that's at and what we realistically think is the timeline for getting those resolved.
Thank you. For the record, Chris Sewell, Director, through you, Madam Chair, to the Speaker.
You can go straight to the member.
Thank you. Our adjudication backlog is 6 months. We have about 15,000 cases. I hope to get that done sooner, but it is 6 months. And I have a really good team of adjudicators and supervisors and that are working through that. They're working through out-of-the-box ideas on getting this taken care of. Last week I said I was going to be extremely transparent with you. I'm going to be extremely transparent now. Appeals backlog. I thought it was 15,000. It's not. It's 32,000. I'm going to be extremely transparent with you because you need to know. If I didn't do anything, just let it go, it would take 4 years. Unacceptable. Totally unacceptable. I went down and I talked to the unit last week. Said, we have to get this done. We're going to get it done by the end of the year. We've added intermittent positions to that unit. And before the next BOE in March, there'll be a contract to help with appeals. Third-party contractors are going to come in and help with appeals. We will get it done. I hope to get it done a lot quicker because I'm embarrassed. I'm embarrassed for every Nevadan. Why should they have to wait this long to get unemployment? It shouldn't happen. We're going to get it fixed and we're going to get it remedied. So that is the number, and that's why you're still getting those calls.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Could I just have a quick follow-up?
Yes.
I wanted to thank you for that because, and look, I'm not blaming you guys here. This is a numbers issue. It's a resource issue. And again, we just couldn't have foreseen this level. In fact, I think in a lot of ways it would have been irresponsible for us as a legislature to inject the kind of money into the unemployment system prior to the pandemic. People would have said, what are you doing? Why are you spending money there? But now we know, and it's in the rearview mirror in terms of that happening. But so I appreciate your effort to do that. The second question is kind of along the same lines, but the other inquiries I often get is I've been told I inappropriately got benefits and I didn't qualify and I have to pay them back. So my question there, just at a high level, is there, I understand there's federal issues here, but is there an ability for people to get a waiver or an exemption? Because what I'm having, of course, is most of those people that were paid were really struggling financially, and now they're saying, how do I possibly pay back $13,000 or $15,000? And I know every case is different, but just generally, is there a process that they can seek to have that waived or forgiven?
Chris Sewell for the record. In short, yes. And I think I'm going to have our deputy director, who is an attorney, who is the attorney for the Employment Security Division, come up and give you a little bit more detail quickly. I know we're running a little over on time. I didn't want to do that, but I think Deputy Director Jordan will be able to answer that in a little more detail for you.
Thank you. For the record, Troy Jordan, Deputy Director for Programs and Legislation at Dieter. There is a waiver process that's prescribed through federal guidance, and it has 3 elements to it. The first is the ability to pay back. The second is whether they have detrimentally relied on something that can be that they bought a house with the money or a car with the money, and they're now into a contractual level of payments. And the third is a legal term of art that in my previous job I was hoping to define before I got out of Dieter, and it's a legal term of art that is it against equity and good conscience to require them to pay back the overpayment? There is that process is at the office. The form for that is available online, based on the suggestion of the budget subcommittee we appeared in front of, I believe, last week. We have highlighted that on the website. It is available. It goes directly to the BPC unit, and that is one process. There's also the appeals process, as I had laid out earlier, that you talked about, that if they think the overpayment was incorrect in the first place, they can appeal that and get the whole thing wiped out if they're successful. But their best bet of eliminating the debt is applying for that waiver. Thank you.
Next, we'll go to Vice Chair Howdigi.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for being here, Director. I want to echo the sentiment of my colleagues. It's refreshing to see what a cheerleader you are for not just like for your entire team. You know, we all got to see it last week when you presented in front of us as well, and I really appreciate that. I had a quick question regarding the number of appeals that you have at your department right now. You said it was 32,000, and that number worries me. I remember when I was chairing the interim Commerce and Labor, Director Caffaretta at the time had come to us and let us know that you guys had received some sort of waiver from the Department of Labor to be able to use staff from other state agencies. And it was my understanding during that hearing that I think that waiver kind of expired. And would it be helpful, because from your presentation, it sounds like you have to hire outside contract workers now to help with the backlog. I mean, not that I think any state agencies have extra employees to share, but I mean, would it be helpful? Because I think like to urge our federal delegation to speak to the Department of Labor to somehow grant that waiver so that you can use the resources within the state already.
Thank you. For the record, Chris Sewell. That is called merit staffing. The DOL did waive merit staffing during the pandemic, and we could hire a lot of companies to come in and help with that, and that's actually how we got through a lot of the backlog. That merit staffing went away. We would love to have that merit staffing back. I can tell you Administrator Linda Parvin would love to be able to hire that company again, because we would be able to get through this backlog even quicker. How we are doing this with our the third-party contract is for the appeals is we're going to have them do all the legwork, but we're still going to have to review it. We still have to push the button, so to speak. But without that, if we didn't have the merit staffing issue, they could actually do the legwork and push the button and get that case settled a lot quicker. So merit staffing is an issue. I know that we're hopefully going to be talking with the Federal Department of Labor, and we're going to be bringing that up as well. But if you can have our federal delegation also say, please give Nevada the waiver, just at least for till the end of the year. That would help us a lot.
Follow up, Madam Chair, if I could, please.
Yes.
Thank you. And Director Sewell, just so we have more information, if the Department of Labor did grant the merit staffing, how soon do you think you could clear that backlog?
For the record, Chris Sewell, I'm going to probably toss this back down to Administrator Parvin, because she has all the numbers on how many they were able to clear out when we didn't have to do this. So I'll let her answer that if she has the answer.
Thank you. For the record, Linda Parvin, Administrator for the Employment Security Division. We have not yet been able to use contracted staff in the appeals process. We've used them in adjudication. And so We are planning on using them, as Chris described, for the legwork. So what we would be taking away by getting this waiver is the process where our staff have to review it and as you said, push the button. So I would think that we would be able to take off about 25% of the time that it'll take to clear the backlog if we didn't have to review all their work. Thank you.
Next, we'll go to Assemblyman O'Neill.
Thank you, Chair. I appreciate it. Hopefully one quick question and a statement. Chris, our Director Sewell, I apologize to you and all your staff. I just almost have to say, are we talking about the same Nevada Dieter that we had several years ago? It's just amazing, your honesty and your transparency, and I want to thank you and all staff. You're honest to a fault, I say. But my question is, with the $1 billion in the trust fund, is there any chance we can lower some of the rates also for our employers?
For the record, David Schmidt. How much money we need in the trust fund is definitely a complicated question. There are some federal recommended guidelines we could use to help answer that. The federal guidelines essentially take the worst 3 years that you've had in the last 20 years and say, what would it take to have enough money to pay out a year's worth of benefits at that rate in the future? And if we followed that measure, it would recommend having about $2 billion in the trust fund. But that includes one of those years is 2020. And so there's an opportunity to say how likely do we think that is? Prior to the pandemic, the number was closer to about $1.2, $1.3 billion. So it was considerably lower. We just paid out so much during the pandemic, it pulls that average up a lot. There's a formula that's in NRS. That would say we need about $5 billion because it only looks at the worst year in the last 10 years. So it takes the pandemic and multiplies it. So there's a few different ways to try to answer that. And usually those are kind of weighed by the Employment Security Council in the rate setting process in October of each year. But we are starting to approach that level where we have roughly what we might need to be prepared for another downturn in the trust fund.
I appreciate it. Thank you for the time.
Next, we'll go to Assemblywoman Backus.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I actually had a follow-up to my colleague's question. When you were looking at the total over the last 20 years for the first 3 years, would that, because 2020 also included a lot of money going out for PUA that usually employers would not have to usually cover, were they able, the feds, to exclude PUA from that calculation?
David Schmidt, for the record, yes. All of those numbers are only focused on the money that we have for regular unemployment purposes and not any of the supplemental federal programs.
Thank you.
Assemblywoman Hardy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And it's good to see you all. And I too wanted to just thank you, Director, and all of your staff. I think probably most of us during the pandemic, that was the majority of the emails and the constituents that reached out to us, even people that weren't our own constituents. And some of them, we're just happy to be able to get a response and actually talk to someone to at least know that someone was there and seeing, addressing their concerns. So thank you very much. My question is about when you were talking about the unemployment rates and people returning to work. Do you track or have any sort of data as to what the barriers are for people that aren't returning or that are not working? Because I know as employers, a lot of, it's even up here in Carson City, they close restaurants now on random days of the week because they don't have people to work. So do you know why those people aren't coming back? Have they left the state, or any information about that?
David Schmidt again for the record, and as much as I would love to talk for the next 30 minutes, I'll try to give a concise answer to a really very complicated question. It is a good question. There's a lot of things that are in play. You have, in part, the labor force participation rate, the share of the population that's either working or looking for work, has been declining nationally for about the last 15 to 20 years as the baby boom population has been aging and getting older. Even just today, I was putting together some reports that look at the intersection of unemployment and labor force participation by different demographic groups. And there are a few groups that definitely pop out as far as having broadly low participation rates, such as people with disabilities, as the administrator for the Vocational Rehabilitation Division said. Also, individuals below poverty level tend to have very low rates of participation, very high rates of unemployment. Another group that pops out is women with children who are of preschool age, especially compared to women who have children who are school age, because of potential barriers with finding accommodations that will allow them to search for work or allow them to accept work and being able to make those ends meet. There's a noticeable difference once children hit school age compared to preschool age. We also see younger workers generally tend to have lower rates of participation at higher rates of unemployment. As they get older, they sort of become a little bit more settled in their careers, but especially with the really large disruption that we saw during the pandemic, you have people who have been dislocated from jobs that they were doing and looking for different opportunities and different ways of doing work. And so we might have a larger share of the population that's in that kind of unsettled, finding the right fit kind of place in terms of their career. I'm sorry, I had another thought that I wanted to add, and it just flew out of my mind. But as we look at the industries in the state, one of the biggest areas of disruption that we have seen is in the accommodation industry and the casino hotel industry. On the one hand, we're down about 30,000 jobs there compared to where we were before the pandemic, and a lot of those are probably not coming back. At the same time, if you look at the total employment level that we have and the total number of job openings that employers report in the state, the total demand for labor, even if we had everyone attached and our participation rate was where it was, the demand for labor is probably 100,000 jobs higher than it's ever been, and so we have more competition for workers at the same time that we have a diminishing pool of workers because of the changes we've seen in the pandemic and the demographic shifts in the state. And so hopefully that's a quick overview, but there's definitely a lot of challenges, and I'd love to follow up with committee staff and provide them some of the additional reports we've done on this topic.
Assemblywoman Kusama.
Thank you, Chair. And two things. I wanted to echo the Vice Chair's, sentiments regarding the merit staffing. If there's any way we can work with our congressional delegation to do that, I'd like to be part of trying to see if we can do that, because it certainly sounds like staffing is really the issue, and that all of your hearts and your hard work from you and all your staff are here, and we appreciate that so much. And I was also wondering, I'm not quite sure how this might work, but if it sounds like it's such a backlog and we need people right away, if there's any way we could tap the Interim Finance Committee for any funds that might be there to get people immediately, not waiting till the next biennium or with maybe the small funds you have, but to do a quicker infusion during the next few months.
For the record, Chris Sewell, thank you for the question. One of the issues that we're also having is we have about a 20% vacancy rate. It's hard to hire right now. Your small businesses are saying the same thing. Your large businesses are saying the same thing. I'm sure you've heard from a lot of state agencies also saying the same thing. If I could hire everyone, it would also go a lot quicker. But right now, it's tough to get people in the door. It really is. And I don't know if the interim finance, if I had 100 new positions, I don't know if I could fill them, honestly.
Or even if we use the contract, can you hear me? Even if we use the contracted out with the organization you were using.
For the record, Chris Sewell, that is probably a possibility. I think that could also be increased. I know I'd have to refer to our administrator, but I believe that contract can be increased so that if we do have that and if we do need the funding for that, that's something we can look into. I'll let her finish that answer.
Thank you. Again, Linda Parvin, Administrator for the Employment Security Division. I think we're putting on it what we can for the time being. The other resource that hasn't been mentioned that is also a contract is even our retirees who want to come back are not merit staff, so they also have to be reviewed, everything they do, even though they've done this for 30 years. So I know we have a couple of those contracts that are coming up as well, so that would be helpful. Thank you.
Perhaps that's something we can help with in the legislature. Thank you so much.
Thank you, and thank you for the presentation. Like my colleagues have already stated, I obviously appreciate the work that you all have done for our state. I'm definitely interested in the way that NERC kind of falls under Dieter, and I'm just wondering if you could talk about maybe some of the we haven't really talked about the backlog within the NERC office. If we could talk about like what that looks like administratively with having such a small office, and I'm sure a number of claims, what that looks like and what barriers your office faces.
Good afternoon, Assemblywoman Torres. This is Kara Jenkins, Administrator of NERC, for the record, directly to you. The backlog with NERC is at about 300 cases, and it kind of stays that way every fiscal year. Our backlog challenges are very different than what we've experienced with our other division over at ESD. It's more so, again, more investigators we have, more growth we have, more claims we can process. One of the things that we tried to address during these last 2 years was to quicken up and streamline the intake process for a discrimination complaint. And we've done that by securing ARPA funds to create our first ever centralized case management system, which should reduce the wait time of about 30%. So right now, if someone said, I felt like I was facing discrimination, maybe an employer fired me because I do have a child and I can't get an accommodation, and they want to file a complaint with NERC, it takes about 14 weeks to see an investigator for a live intake. What we're doing now is we're creating a system that will go live by the end of this year to do the intake virtually online. So all the pre-screening questions will be done through an automated system with controls on our end to make sure that they know what they're doing and that we're giving the proper approvals. But you're not waiting for an available investigator to basically go through the pre-screening questions when we could be delegating them to actual investigations. So to your question, we do good. We meet our EEOC contract numbers, which is about 660 cases a year that we get for credit with EEOC, and then we take about 1,500 complaints just in general a year. But I think we could see significant growth in NERC if we had more investment in our overall operating staff. So our budget's about $2.5 million, and that's a drop in the bucket, I'm aware, but we actually, for a return on investment, we give that money back in settlements. But I think that the growth of NERC would be phenomenal if there was an investment in getting more investigators.
Any other questions? I have a question. I want to circle back to the repayment of overpayment and the waiver. Do we know how many waivers have been submitted?
For the record, Troy Jordan, Deputy Director of Dieter for Programs and Legislation. I don't want to take a stab at it. We will get you that information. That was not a number we brought today. I can tell you it's in the thousands already. And I don't want to speculate further than that because we want to be transparent. I don't want to use a number and find out it's double that or triple that. So I will tell you that there have been, my guess is it's in the thousands, but I don't want to go any further than that. We will get you that number.
So if you can submit that to the committee secretary. So then I have two questions that I'm sure you don't have it. So how many have been submitted? Is there a backlog? And the waivers, are they being decided by a special department?
All of the one part of that I can't answer today is that they're all decided by our Benefit Payment and Control Department. That's part of their job. The waiver is not a new concept. It just was not widely requested or used prior to the pandemic.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Any other questions? Thank you so much for being here today in your presentation. Next, we will hear about the Sunset Subcommittee of the Legislative Commission from Assembly Member Vice Chair Howdigi, who served as chair of the subcommittee this interim period. She's joined by Cesar Melgarejo with the Research Division of the Legislative Council Bureau, who staffed the subcommittee. When you're ready.
Thank you, Chair Marzola, and members of the Assembly Committee on Commerce and Labor. It's nice to see some faces who sat with me on the interim Commerce and Labor, so this will all be very familiar to you. I'm Sandra Howdigi, representing Assembly District 41. Today, I am here as the chair of the Sunset Subcommittee of the Legislative Commission for the 2021-2022 interim to present an overview of the subcommittee and its recommendation for legislation coming before the 82nd session. A little background on the Sunset Subcommittee. It was created in 2011 with the enactment of Senate Bill 251. The subcommittee is responsible for conducting reviews of all boards and commissions in Nevada that are not provided for in the Nevada Constitution or established by an executive order of the governor. The idea of creating a Sunset Subcommittee came from a recommendation from the 2008 Nevada Spending and Government Efficiency Commission, which specifically recommended establishing a Sunset Commission to review government operations for the purpose of improving efficiency. The subcommittee is charged with 1, conducting a review of all boards, commissions, and similar entities in Nevada created by statute, which is roughly about 230 plus entities, and determining whether each entity should be continued, modified, consolidated with another entity, or terminated. 2, recommending improvements to the entities that are to be continued, modified, or consolidated. And 3, determining whether any tax exemptions, abatements, or money set aside for an entity should be continued, modified, or terminated. The Sunset Subcommittee is also required to conduct a review of each professional or occupational licensing board and regulatory body in this state to determine whether the restrictions on the criminal history of an applicant for occupational or professional license are appropriate. In the 6 interims of its existence, the Sunset Subcommittee has reviewed 144 entities at least once, which is an average of about 28 entities each interim. Of those reviewed, 20 entities have been terminated at the recommendation of the subcommittee. During the 2021-2022 interim, we recommended terminating 5 entities. However, to put this into perspective, the 2019 legislature created 29 new boards, and the 2021 legislature created an additional 7. Unlike most interim committees or studies, the Sunset Subcommittee does not have a specified allotment of bill draft requests. The subcommittee is required to submit recommendations before June 30th of even-numbered years to the Legislative Commission. The Legislative Commission, in turn, has often included the Sunset Subcommittee's recommendations amongst its 10 authorized BDRs. This session, the Legislative Commission recommended 4 of its BDRs containing recommendations from the Sunset Subcommittee. The subcommittee is comprised of 6 legislators appointed by legislative leaders of both parties, 3 voting members of the Senate and 3 voting members of the Assembly, as well as 3 non-voting members of the general public appointed by the Sunset Subcommittee coming from recommendations of the governor. The chair and the vice chair are elected by voting members of the subcommittee on the first day of the committee's. Including in the meeting packet for today's meeting is an abstract providing background on the subcommittee and the summary of recommendations approved by the subcommittee. Over the course of our 6 meetings, we reviewed 18 entities and received reports and updates from several entities that were reviewed by the prior interim. The recommendations for legislation from the subcommittee relate to 15 boards, commissions, and committees. 9 entities were recommended for continuation with statutory revisions. 5 entities were recommended for termination, and 1 entity was recommended for termination with its functions transferred to another entity. Most of these recommendations were requested by the respective boards, committees, and commissions. In addition, the subcommittee submitted 4 legislative recommendations that address broader concerns identified during our meetings. These recommendations address member vacancies, diversity of individuals appointed to the boards and commissions, reports to the Legislative Commission concerning the review of occupational licensing applicants' criminal history, and the appointment of the chair and vice chair of the Sunset Subcommittee. Chair Marzola, thank you for the opportunity to present an overview of the Sunset Subcommittee. The subcommittee provides an opportunity for the legislature to look into the operations of the statutory boards and commissions. Some of these entities were created in the late 1800s and may not have been reviewed by the legislature in a very long time. It also offers the boards and commissions an opportunity to come before the committee and make requests for statutory revisions that might make their operations more efficient. Finally, I should point out that the NRS states that it is the burden of the board or commission to prove that there is a public need for its continued existence. And the good news is that I will be coming before this committee a few more times to present the recommendations that have been turned into bills. I'm happy to answer any questions, Chair Marzola, or give any more details regarding what came out of the interim subcommittee.
Thank you so much for your presentation, Vice Chair. Does anyone have questions? There are no questions.
Thank you for.
Oh, sorry, Assemblywoman Kasama.
Not really a question. I just wanted to say I enjoyed so much serving with you in the committee and all the members that spent time during, the summer and working on this. And I think it's a fabulous committee that we enacted during legislation to review these and make sure that, the committees, I think sometimes create too many. And this is why we have this. It overburdens the staff and all of our agencies. And I really enjoyed serving on it. So thank you for your chairing that.
Thank you, Assemblywoman. I couldn't agree with you more.
Any other questions? Thank you so much. Our final item today, we'll hear from the Legislative Auditor, Daniel Crossman, and Laura Harwood, Deputy Legislative Auditor with the Audit Division of the Legislative Council Bureau, who will provide information on the financial standing of our Professional and Occupational Licensing Board.
Good afternoon. Chair Marzola, members of the Assembly Committee on Commerce and Labor. For the record, my name is Dan Crossman, Legislative Auditor with the LCB Audit Division. Excited to be here before you today to take a couple of your minutes. I do recognize that we are the last thing standing between you and your first weekend of service this year within these walls here. We do appreciate the time to talk with you. What I'd like to do today is just make a brief presentation to introduce a little bit about the Audit Division and some of the things we do, followed by a little more detailed information specific to the state's professional licensing boards. The main function of the Audit Division is to conduct performance audits. Performance audits provide objective information to provide programs, their performance, contribute to public accountability, as well as facilitate the decision-making process. Performance audit objectives may vary widely and often include assessments of program effectiveness, efficiency, and compliance. I'd like to highlight that our audits have generated tens of millions of dollars in the last 2 years in monetary benefits, cost savings, and revenue enhancements. However, in addition to those financial aspects of our audits, and I would argue more importantly, many of our audits focus on program activities that significantly impact the citizens of Nevada. It's not all about the money. The Audit Division is statutorily required to audit all state agencies. Our audits must be approved by the Legislative Commission, which comes in the form of a biennial audit plan or a special request from the Legislative Commission, or our audits can be approved by this body of the legislature in legislation. For example, Assembly Bill 416 from last session required us to audit the university system. We released a series of 3 reports last month to comply with that requirement. So the performance audits are our primary function, but we also handle various other duties I'll just touch on briefly here. For example, we do contract out the statewide single audit process, and we actively monitor the contractor's work and performance, which includes attending meetings at state agencies, reviewing the contractor's work to ensure compliance with our contract and with requirements of that of the single audit process, as well as helping the contractor deal with state agencies that may not be as cooperative as we and they would like them to be at times. All of the single audit reports that have been issued can be found on our website. Next, the Audit Division has certain responsibilities regarding child welfare. We conduct children's facility reviews or inspections. There are approximately 54 facilities currently throughout the state that have physical custody of approximately 1,200 children pursuant to a court order. We conducted 19 facility inspections of those 54 during this last year to evaluate whether these governmental and private facilities adequately protect the health, safety, and welfare of the children and respect their civil and other rights. We issue a report annually on this topic, and those can be found on our website as well. Next, we also review child fatalities in the state. Each biennium, unfortunately, we review between 70 and 100 cases of children that have had prior contact with a welfare agency who have suffered a fatality or a near fatality. This review is to determine whether or not the child welfare agencies handled the case in accordance with the applicable laws and whether the agency could have taken other reasonable measures in preventing the fatality or near fatality. It is gruesome work to work through, and our staff have to put in some tough time reviewing some very difficult documentation and doing those reviews. But I think it is a very important function that we've been asked to do. We will be issuing a report for the reviews we conducted during the last year here coming up in the next week or two. A couple quick items, and then we'll get to the meat of this. We also have some responsibilities related to the special license plates in cooperation with the DMV. Assembly Bill 188 abolished the Commission on Special License Plates in 2019, or 2021. I think it's 2021, last session. The Audit Division reviews the financial information and some of the control processes of approximately 30 charitable organizations that receive that revenue from special license plates. And our purpose is to help ensure that that money is going where it should be going. And the last function that I'll touch on here is highlighting our oversight of the state's professional licensing boards, which is the main reason why we are here today. So first, the Audit Division does occasionally conduct a performance audit of a licensing board. NRS provides that the Audit Division will conduct an audit of a board when directed by the Legislative Commission. Our most recent audit directed by the Commission was of the Board of Medical Examiners, and there's a couple other boards in past years that we have been asked to audit. I am, just for the record, not lobbying for any additional audits of those boards. They're generally very small, and while they're very important, we have a lot of other larger entities and agencies that we have a responsibility to audit, including a couple that we're sitting before you today. However, if there is a specific problem or a reason for us to perform an audit, if requested, we'd be, of course, more than happy to comply. So, Chair, with your permission, I would like to turn the rest of the presentation over to Laura Harwood, Deputy Legislative Auditor, to perform or to more thoroughly discuss our responsibilities over the professional licensing boards.
Good afternoon. For the record, my name is Laura Harwood, Deputy Legislative Auditor of the Legislative Council Bureau's Audit Division. We have submitted a document dated February 2nd, 2023, which is our biannual status report on audits of certain state boards for January 2023. A copy of this letter is included as an exhibit to this meeting, and a copy should be in front of you today. Our previously issued letters are also available on the Audit Division website. Included in our analysis are the professional licensing boards. Our review does not include boards whose budgets fall under the executive budget, as they have oversight through that process. Page 4 is an attachment which shows basic financial information for the 34 occupational licensing boards that we reviewed. It shows their revenues and expenditures to give you an indication of the size of the boards. As indicated in the first paragraph on page 1, Nevada Revised Statutes, NRS 218G.400, requires these boards to be audited annually or biannually by contract auditors. The audit report must be submitted to us by the board on or before December 1st of the year in which the audit is conducted. Statute also requires boards with revenues less than $200,000 for any fiscal year to complete a self-reported balance sheet and submit it to the legislative auditor and the chief of the budget division on or before December 1st following the end of that fiscal year. The audit division receives and reviews 3 types of financial reports from the boards. The first type of report is the annual audited financial statements provided or prepared by auditors contracted by the boards. The annual audit is required by NRS 218G.400 for boards with revenues of $200,000 or more. The audited financial statements provide an opinion as to whether the entity's financial statements are presented fairly in all material respects. Financial auditors also review internal controls and occasionally include findings in their audit reports. Most of the board's audits do not specify how much an audit costs, as those costs are reported with other professional fees. For the boards that did specify, the audits typically cost between $7,000 and $16,000, depending on the size of the board and the CPA firm. The second type of report, also for boards with revenues of $200,000 or more, is a biannual audit prepared by CPA firms. Instead of an annual audit, biannual audits are performed every 2 years. Boards that elect to complete biennial audits may not receive complete information on financial activities for a period of 2 years. This is because the completeness of the financial information depends on the quality and accuracy of self-generated, unaudited financial information reported to the boards between audits. However, cost savings can be realized with the biennial audit. A few years ago, we surveyed 4 CPA firms that estimated the biennial audit saved between 20% and 30% in costs over a 2-year period. The third type of financial report we review from the boards is a balance sheet. The smaller boards with revenues less than $200,000 are required to provide self-reported balance sheet information on a form developed by the audit division. The balance sheet provides an overview of financial information, but this information is not audited. For example, we do not review invoices or other information to verify their expenditures and revenues. Although the balance sheet is not equivalent to an audit, we do review year-end bank statements, fund balances, a schedule of revenues and expenditures, and other documentation that supports the balance sheet information. We also compare the balance sheets to prior years to identify problems with these entities. Based on our reviews of the financial information, we report areas of concern in our biannual status report issued in January and July of each year. As indicated on the report dated February 2nd, 2023, we indicated 4 issues. One was with the Nevada Board of Homeopathic Medical Examiners. They were unable to provide supporting documentation from their accounting system for the information reported in their self-reported balance sheet. We have been in communication with this board, and they are working on getting the information entered into their accounting system so they can provide us with automated reports as they have done in previous years. The next 2 issues were related to noncompliance with the Governmental Accounting Standards Board, GASB Statement Number 75, which discusses accounting and financial reporting for post-employment benefits other than pensions. The Chiropractic Physicians Board of Nevada has received a qualified opinion from their independent auditor on their annual audits each year since fiscal year 2018 for not adopting GASB 75. A qualified opinion means the independent auditor determined the financial statements were presented fairly except for the effects of not adopting GASB 75. Since our letter, the board has indicated they are working with their CPA to reissue their fiscal year 2022 audit to be compliant with GASB 75. The second issue related to GASB 75 is regarding the Board of Examiners for Social Workers. Their independent auditor is revising the board's fiscal year 2022 audited financial statements to reflect the adoption of GASB 75. Therefore, we have not received their final audit report. We expect the revised financials to be approved by the board and submitted to the legislative auditor within the next few weeks. The final issue we are reporting is financial reports not filed by the Board of Dental Examiners of Nevada. The board indicated their financial reports were delayed because the CPA firm they had engaged to perform their audit has resigned, and the board had to find a new CPA firm. We received notification on February 2nd that the board approved on February 1st a new CPA firm to perform their audit. The board has not submitted their financial statements timely for several years since fiscal year 2018. We expect to receive their audited financial statements before we issue our July biennial letter. Regarding the July biennial letter, each year in July, we provide updates on outstanding issues we have identified in our January status report on audits of certain state boards letter, which is the letter we are presenting now. Typically, the issues reported in January are resolved by the time we issue our July letter. In the past, embezzlement has been an area of concern. However, there have been no reports or indications of embezzlement or civil penalties since fiscal year 2019. And I'm sure you will all agree that's a good thing. That concludes my presentation, and I would be happy to answer any questions at this time.
Thank you so much for your presentation. Does anyone have any questions? I have a question. Vice Chair.
Thank you, Chair. And I'm sorry if you covered this. I was reading through the document as you were speaking, but on the last page, the financial information of the boards, just quickly, I noticed that some boards actually have more expenses than revenues. So are they pulling from reserves for those, or is that something that you guys kind of watch if that happens? It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I noticed it was 5 boards that had more going out than coming in.
Yes, Laura Harwood, for the record. Yes, they would be pulling from reserves. We also monitor their fund balances to make sure that they have positive fund balances each year.
Thank you, Chair.
Assemblywoman Torres.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for the presentation. One quick question. You had mentioned that your division is also responsible for the audits for the facilities with children. And so can you walk us through, if there was a facility that was found to have conditions that were unacceptable for the students there, what would be the response, and would there be any immediate response to that site to ensure that we're responding to those concerns? What consequences would those facilities face?
For the record, Dan Crossman, through the chair, to Assemblywoman Torres. For those reviews of facilities, we do let me just walk you through really quickly the process, if that's okay. We begin with a physical inspection and a walkthrough, and we look at a number of areas. Any of those issues that we identify that are of concern, we will communicate those immediately to the individuals there at the facilities. The next step would then be to reach out to the licensing agency, whether that be Clark County Family Services, Clark County Family Services, Washoe County's Human Services Agency, I always get those two mixed up, or DCFS, the rural region, who would oversee some of those. And then we would have the opportunity there to reach out, or other licensing agencies, depending on the nature of the facility. We would reach out to them to let them know. Our responsibility with this function is to kind of push back, if you will, onto the licensing entities, as we are not the ones to make those decisions regarding their licenses. Now, we'll continue to follow up with them to understand what corrective actions have been taken at those facilities we have visited. All of that information will be included in our reports when we report, and as well as an update as far as what additional steps have been taken to correct some of the issues.
Thank you. And just a quick follow-up. And so because I did have the opportunity to look at the report that you had filed, I believe it was in the fall. And I noticed that there were several facilities that just had conditions that were just quite simply unacceptable. And so I'm just wondering, how long does it take for the licensing department to respond to that once the audit division had response? And then also, once the audit division identifies the issue, do you clearly communicate that with the individual, with that facility at the time too, so that they can start taking actions to change that?
For the record, Dan Crossman. So we communicate that immediately with them. Remind me of the first part of the question. Sorry, I just...
And then how long does it take for
sorry,
the licensing
timing.
department to respond?
It's hard to say as far as a response. They are very responsive to us as far as when we reach out to them. Often we will get notification that they have immediately gone out or within a few days, depending on the severity of the issues we've identified. Each one is a little different, so I'd hate to speak to a specific timeline for that. I would say, in my opinion, they've been very responsive to us as far as following up, especially when there's issues that need some corrective action. Now, and I'll mention it as well, we do, as part of that follow-up process, we do reach out to them to find out when they were last there as well. And we try to highlight that in our reports often, because there are times when licensing has been out to a facility previous to our visit, which is also where we want to highlight that in our reports, that for whatever reason, potentially the licensing agency may have not identified or written up a facility for some of the deficiencies that we've identified. And so I think by bringing that to their attention and putting it in writing, it does help move the needle there where they are more responsive. But they are generally very responsive to the issues we bring to their attention.
Any other questions? I see none. Thank you so much for your presentation and being here this afternoon. I will now open up to public comment. Please address your remarks to issues that fall within the jurisdiction of this committee. If you direct your remarks to issues over which this committee has no oversight, I will ask you to redirect. Public comment is limited to 2 minutes per person. Please remember to state and spell your name for the record and indicate your affiliation, if any. For those persons who wish to provide testimony telephonically, please call 669-900-6833. When prompted, please enter 819-127-46733 and press pound. Is there any public comment here in Carson City? I don't see any. Is there any public comment in Las Vegas? PBS, is there anyone on the line?
Chair, to provide public comment, please press star 9 on your phone to take your place in the queue. Again, if you wish to provide public comment, please press star 9 on your phone to take your place in the queue. Chair, it appears that we have nobody for public comment.
Thank you. Any final comments from the committee? That concludes our meeting for today. Our next meeting will be Monday, February 13th at 1:30 p.m. Let's please make sure to be here at 1:30 p.m. out of respect for the presenters and our committee members. Thank you. We're adjourned.